Welcome to 216, Link to the Past Randomizer podcast. I'm your host, your agent. Back for episode number 4. Response to the show again. It's been super overwhelming, super positive. I can't thank everyone enough for just the feedback that I've been hearing, that you're all enjoying the show and the conversations that we're having, and it means a lot. I'm having a great time doing it. Already booked through season 1. Season 1 will be 12 episodes. Have that confirmed. Already started booking for season 2. So don't expect much of a break between season 1 and season 2. I'm just having too much fun doing these. And there's so many people in the community that I want to talk to. And just not enough hours. Not enough time to do it all. So yeah, just thanks again for listening to the show. Thanks for the response. Any feedback I get, even if it's not positive, I'm open to, and I'm hoping to hear. And yeah, thanks for reaching out, and for everyone that's joined the Discord and is hanging out, really appreciate it as well. Last week was my birthday. Turned 41 years old, super old. Probably one of the oldest people in the community. But this is an old game, right? Had a birthday stream, did some cross keys versus Humbug and Jula Ninja. Humbug got a 125 against me in cross keys. That seed was bananas. Boots were in Link's house. Can't complain about that. Lost by like 15 minutes, but had a fun time doing it anyways. So big shouts to everyone that stopped by the stream, hung out for my birthday, dropped those gift subs, all that kind of stuff. Really appreciate it again. Community has been super kind to me, and I can't thank you all enough. I ended up heading up to Seattle. I'm in Washington, hanging out with some buddies. Went to a Mariners versus Boston Red Sox game. Unfortunately, the Mariners lost by 1 run. Didn't go the way I was hoping. Hoping for a 9th inning rally. Didn't happen. But regardless, I had a blast with my friends. Had some really good food and hung out in Seattle. It's a really good time. Main tournament's going on, of course. We're already heading into the top 16, top 8. Got one qualifier into the top 8. If you're a fan of Scottish Brave and Zen Arcane, both got knocked out. Was really hoping to see them meet up in the top 8, but got knocked out, I believe, by Tito and Skell. So congratulations to them. Don't want to take anything away from those victories. But was a bit disappointed that we didn't get the dream main tournament matchup of Scottish Brave versus Zen Arcane. But they're going to be fine. They're getting married. They're having a good time playing this game, dominating top 32. So big shouts to Scottish Brave and Zen Arcane. What else? We got Moogle versus Scholzer coming up here, I believe, top 16. That's going to be a good matchup to keep an eye out for. Zelga, who is still my pick and will remain my pick to win this whole thing, faces Skell, who just knocked out Scottish Brave. Playing really, really well. Going to be a really good matchup. Winner goes on to the top 8. Speaking of the top 8, we have our first person into the top 8. That is Arier. Someone who's pretty good at the game, I would say. Current NMG 80% world record holder. Dominates NMG and rando. Doesn't seem too fair. But if you look at his route to top 8, see, top 64, 2-0'd McMonkey. Not easy to do. 2-0'd Raylan Tinkier. Not easy to do. And then 2-0'd Matt 7898. That's really not easy to do. And they had some fun races to watch. So if you want to check those Ari versus Matt races out, I would highly recommend it. 2 of my favorite runners. So Ari, first person locked into the top 8. Not a surprise. I think we still have the possibility of seeing like an Ari Zelga matchup, which would be pretty hype, as they're 2 of the best runners in the entire community. Ari on a tear though. Top 8, and winning the ladder invitational, the recent invitational that just happened. Took it in 3 against Humbug. It was the Open Plus Invitational that the ladder is running. Open Plus being pseudo boots. Pseudo boots being controversial. I don't know. People just want boots. I think we should just have boots. The reason I think we have pseudo boots is there is a small percentage of people that really hate hovering, like really hate it. There's the people that hover, so therefore it. There's the people that don't hover. And in that don't hover section, there's people who don't care, and a loud minority that hate it so much that they want to remove it from the game. And so pseudo boots was like a compromise, but it's just not. Just give us boots. Let's just have boots. Pseudo boots are fine. I don't hate pseudo boots, but let's just have boots. And if this is controversial and you hate hovering, sorry. It's just part of the game. Sorry that you don't like it. There's the Moldorm bounce to get around hovering Moldorm 2. You can learn that. It's not that hard to do. It's just part of racing. Let's just have it. And if we're going to do boots, that's why casual boots is so nice, is just have boots. The pseudo boots were a cool experiment. I think it's like a good compromise, I guess. But actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back. I don't think it's that good of a compromise. I think it's just give us boots and let's just dash. So that's my stance on that. Cross Keys tournament, it was announced, going to be starting July 5th. I think 196 cap. And right now it's over 120 people already entered. Going to be a Swiss into brackets. Last year it was top 16. I'm not sure. I haven't fully read the document, so I'm not sure if they're expanding that or not, but hope they expand it past 16, maybe top 32. Last year in the Cross Keys tournament, I went 5-3. I lost to Jay Coper in the last round to miss the play-in race. And that was a bit unfortunate. Hoping to do a little bit better, but field is expanding. More and more people are playing Cross Keys. It's going to be that much more tough. We'll see. Definitely joining that one. Still on the fence about casual boots. Currently registered for casual boots, but not 100% sure that I'm going to be joining. Yeah, that's what we got going on in the community right now. Today's guest is P-Train. A lot of people know who P-Train is. Just a nice guy. P-Train is just a nice, positive, even-keeled dude. And that's kind of what our conversation is. It's just a conversation of positivity and even-keeledness. He doesn't get super high and he doesn't get super low. And I need more of that in my life. I need more positivity. I need more even-keeledness. Someone who can just kind of keep it steady throughout whatever's going on. Yeah, it's a super fun conversation. So enough yapping from me. Let's get to that conversation. So not to date the episode, but you just had a race for you're in the main tournament. You're in the brackets, top 64 against Radical Sniper Game 2. How'd it go?
I lost, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So not well.
It didn't.
Didn't like the seat.
Yeah. What mode was it?
It was Key Sanity, which I felt like I was due for. I think I had a big chance of Key Sanity. According to Moogle Charm's calculations, he did magic and gave me a number.
Okay, nice.
It was like 44% for Key Sanity and 22% for inverted Key Sanity. So I figured I was getting some kind of Key Sanity.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
Just the way it played out, I could not find the progression. And Radical Sniper made all the right decisions, despite his best efforts. We were on Death Mountain without a mirror, and he forgot. So he entered the south portal and couldn't do a Turtle Rock dive because he couldn't mirror and open up the portal. And there was nothing in Turtle Rock, and I can tell you because I made that play. And,
man!
So he had a lot of time on me. He had a very convincing win over me. So good for him.
Yeah.
But sucks for me.
For sure. So how have you enjoyed the main tournament this year compared to, because this is what, your fourth main tournament?
That sounds right. I did the Swiss, I did the groups. Yeah, I think this is my fourth.
Okay.
So Yeah, this is the second tournament I've played where there's kind of a grab bag of modes. Although this one you don't really have control over. The previous one was I guess it would have been 2019 maybe, where you could kind of vote for different
Veto?
changes.
Was it the veto one?
Yeah,
Really kind of
because
veto
I
modes? Yeah.
vetoed swordless forever. Because
Yeah.
swordless is the worst. I don't care what Dante said in his episode.
I agree. It's awful. It is awful. Not being able to dash through stuff is awful. And, you know, you get used to not having swords in certain areas, and that's not that big of a deal. But seriously, like dashing without a sword and then like the Aga fights, it's just not fun.
Yeah. That said, you know, this tournament, not that I expected it to be a bad time. All right, because I'm going to say this, and I don't want people to think like, "Oh, I expected it to suck." But I'm having a surprisingly good time with it.
Yeah.
I had some reservations about some of the modes that were being included. That said, I've only raced Inverted Key Sanity once. That's my least favorite mode of the modes that you can race. But
And you've only gotten it once?
Yeah,
Nice.
it was my first race actually.
Of course.
So just trial by fire there.
Yeah. Did you win that race?
I've actually enjoyed it. Yeah, I did win it. I won it.
Okay. Nice. What do you think? How do you compare it? Yeah, how do you compare it to the last ones? Which of the main tournaments have you enjoyed the most? The 512 Swiss?
No, I mean I don't know. 512 Swiss was my first one, so actually it always kind of has a I have a fondness for that tournament just because it was my first tournament. And also I had no administrative roles, so you know most of the complaints come from the administrative side, which I get. But I don't know. Like if I could go back, maybe I think of all the in terms of main tournaments, it probably would be that one where you could veto the different modes, just because I thought that was craziness, but within reason. Or where you could make like there's also that tournament where you could make like one change. So like you could choose for it to be like 6-6 as opposed to 7-7, or you could choose for it to be like maybe fast Ganon instead of open Ganon. I thought that was a really cool way to keep it fresh without getting like real nutty with it and just getting these like really crazy modes. I really enjoyed that tournament.
Yeah. Did you like last year's, the all stand hard, the entire run?
I went far during that tournament too. I don't know. Like, I mean, I enjoy playing the game. Also, I tend to appreciate modes that focus on execution. So things like Key Sanity can be a little volatile. You know, well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, one skip can make or break you, but also because it's Key Sanity, you know, it's kind of harder for the god route to be so strong in Key Sanity.
Right. Yeah.
There's a lot of things that can go right. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. But stand hard, I don't know. I felt like it was a good test of execution. You know, you had to be clever with your health. You couldn't just rush in them. You know, like let's say you enter Dark World with a fire rod in typical open or standard modes, that you're almost guaranteed to be going to Skull Woods if you have a sword, just because that's at that point it's almost guaranteed to be an easy fight. But with the adjusted health pool, that wasn't guaranteed, which was really cool. You had to be a little bit smarter with what you committed to early game. And there were lots of stories of people who thought they could handle Moth or thought they could handle Dark Pod early on in the game because that's what they were used to doing. And you have to play, the meta changes when you don't have as much health.
Yeah, for sure. It's interesting. I didn't play this tournament, but I feel like I tend to enjoy the variety more than just one mode. Like last year just kind of felt a little monotonous because it was actually the best performance for myself. I made top 32, but I think the variety of modes in the main tournament just makes it a bit more tolerable, I think. I don't know. What do you think?
I agree. Again, as long as the modes are like somewhat comparable to each other, you know, Inverted Key Sanity again being just kind of the outlier there, just because it's a completely different style of routing.
Right.
I think Key Sanity is comparable to Open. I think Ambrosia is comparable to Open. Even Boss Miser, you know, Boss Miser has its quirks, but you know the items unlock the same locations. And with
Right.
inverted key sanity, mitts have completely different implications. A moon pearl has completely different implications. It's just the rules are so drastically different in inverted key sanity.
Yeah, it is weird. And then they threw in the wrinkle of the flute start, which, I mean, you've played a decent amount of inverted, I'm sure. And I know I played a lot of inverted. Throwing in that flute start just kind of changes everything a bit. So that was kind of an interesting inclusion, like right before the tournament started.
I like what it does to like I like what it does to the very beginning of the seed. But beyond that, I found that what it does is that my bunny walking starts from desert as opposed to from the castle after killing Aga. No. That's been my experience. I'm sure other people have had different experiences, but in my limited exposure, that's what it's felt like to me.
Yeah, for sure. So where did you start? How did you get introduced to randomizer? Were you already speedrunning or doing things like that, or how did you find it?
I have always had a fondness for Link to the Past. It has been my absolute favorite video game since I grew up with a Super Nintendo. I think I had a Super Nintendo before I started kindergarten.
Oh, wow. So
I've been playing it since I was like 4. My dad bought the combo that came with the Super Mario World. Mm-hmm. And I've always loved Zelda. And I remember even as a kid, like in middle school or high school, when I first got access to the internet and I found out that glitches existed for Link to the Past, I didn't understand at that point that there were different versions of the game. So I think there was kind of this, it was very difficult to find because you didn't have these hubs of knowledge. Like today, information's so easy to access with,
right. Yeah.
Like Reddit, Discord, all these communities that just share information. Back then, it was like the Wild West, like you just kind of had to find what you could find on Ask Jeeves.
Yeah. I think GameFAQs was like one of the first ones that kind of had information, but it didn't even have like full information. You usually have like walkthroughs and stuff, but not necessarily glitches.
I spent many hours on that site, man. That's a throwback.
Yeah. I haven't been to the site in forever, but I remember when it, first days of the internet using that quite a bit.
But yeah, you would find these, like I could read about these glitches, but I didn't understand like the difference between the 1.0 version and like the US version. So I would try them and I'd be like, oh, well, I guess I'm just bad at the game because I can't do these glitches. And I would every now and then pick it up and do another casual playthrough just because I love the game so much.
Sure.
And it wasn't until ADGQ 2018 where I saw Andy versus Christos do their expo race, and
the swordless one, right?
When I saw that, I was like, I gotta get in on this. Like my favorite game, and now it's new every time. Like, holy cow!
Were you watching stuff on Twitch before that? Were you into streaming or speedrunning other games, or how did you even come across GDQ?
I felt like I had heard about it. I can't remember when I actually heard about it. To be honest, like I feel like I found ADGQ around the time I feel like I discovered speedrunning about that same time. I had never heard of speedrunning before, and about the time I heard about ADGQ, I was like, oh, well, what is a speedrun? And that's where I was kind of exposed to that side of the community. And actually, I remember like one of the first speedrunning videos I saw when I was just starting to get into it was I want to say it was now she's Narcissa Wright. At the time the video was recorded, I believe their name was Cosmo. They did a run where they just broke Ocarina of Time wide open, and the coolest part to me was that she was just kind of breaking down like, oh yeah, this is the history of the run and this is how I was exposed to the run, and she was just talking about lurking on these different message boards, and man, I was just so fascinated about how the runs develop and how tech is discovered and how it's evaluated and it's determined, like, does this make the route more effective? Because sometimes you'll find a trick, but it has no value in, this category because it's too broken or you just can't find the time to set it up. And I don't know. I really appreciated the different perspectives that come into speedrunning and the level of effort it takes to really optimize a run.
Right. So that didn't get you interested in running Ocarina of Time at all, though? Was
No,
it the
I just that was just beyond my time. By the time the
yeah
Nintendo 64, I played through Ocarina of Time when it came out, but it just doesn't hit me like nostalgia wise the same
right
way that Link to the Past does.
sure, especially if you grow up with it, that uh I feel like everyone I've interviewed or talked with has that same sort of like come to Jesus moment with Link to the Past, where it's like, oh, I found this game and it like hit me and it's always stuck with me. And I think that's the cool thing about this game and the randomizer is the fact that you kind of get that feeling every time you boot up a new seed. It's like you get the warm and fuzzies a little bit about how cool this game actually is. So
Yeah, man, I had a conversation with my wife too, just like playing through randomizer, and I think this was about the time I was in the last tournament. And I had a really good run through last year's tournament. I think I lost to the winner, so
oh
I
right,
felt
yeah.
relatively good about that. But
Yeah.
I was just having a really good run. I had some other hobbies I was working on, things like that, and I just kind of had this moment where I told my wife, I'm like, man, if I could go back in time and do a speed run for like myself when I was
Oh yeah.
12.
Yeah.
I would think I
Blow your
was the
mind.
coolest son of a gun on the planet. I'm like, I'm going
Totally.
to be awesome when I grow up.
Yeah. Could you imagine, the 6-year-old P Train seeing P Train from 2021, doing 120? What's your NMG time? 128?
I think I'm at
2020?
127.01, I think. I
Yeah. Could you
just barely
imagine?
missed the 126.
Oh, it's so close. But could you even just imagine showing that to your younger self and how amazed young P Train would be?
Man, I would be great. It's just so interesting because like sometimes it's kind of hard to find like arbitrary measures of success in life. But I feel
Sure.
like if you can look at like your hobbies and what you do right now and think like, oh, man, if I could show this to myself, when I was a kid, like I would think I'm so cool. Like it's I don't know, it's an oddly
Yeah.
reassuring feeling. It's like,
Yeah.
maybe my life's not as crazy as I think.
Yeah, totally. That puts things into perspective. So you find the run at AGDQ, and you immediately jump into the Discord, and were you already familiar with Discord and all that kind of stuff, or were you running seeds
Nope.
offline? How did it go?
I had to download Discord. I had to discover what that is, create an account.
Yeah.
That's also when I first started hanging out on Twitch. And like I didn't know what any of the emotes meant. So people would say things in my chat and then put a kappa behind it. But I didn't understand that like kappa meant like sarcasm.
Yeah.
So I was like, I always try to treat people, especially if I don't know them, I try to take you seriously because I never want to offend you by thinking that you're joking, but you're actually trying to be serious. And now I come across as dismissive. So people would say, just like the craziest things and like kappa. And I'm trying to treat it as serious as a heart attack. And they're like, oh, did you not see the kappa? So I had to Google what kappa meant. I had to Google what forehead meant and all these Twitch emotes. I'm some 20-year-old guy.
Yep.
So never heard of IRC. And when I first got introduced to the randomizer, I would actually download seeds and run them offline until I hit go mode. And when I hit go mode, because I wasn't very good at the game, so the seeds were taking me, if I were to play them to completion, would probably be somewhere around 2.5 to 2 hours and 45 minutes. And I would play them to go mode, and that would be it. My first actual race was against a runner is all one word. He's just a boy. And that was the first round of the 512 Swiss tourney, and that was my first race ever.
Oh wow! So you jumped right into the thick of things, huh? You didn't even go from like casual races on Discord or dailies or anything. You just went right into that tournament, huh?
Yeah, it may have been, I don't know if it was during the tournament or right after I got kicked out of the Swiss. I didn't move on to the next stage tournament because I was trash tier. But I want to say it was like maybe a week or two after getting booted out of that tournament that I joined my first daily race.
Oh, wow. So how many races were you doing, or how long were you doing those offline races, and when did you start completing them? Because that's a big portion of the game that you're not finishing.
Honestly, it's hard for me to focus on anything when there's nothing at stake.
I see.
And so, like offline runs, I just never could be bothered to finish them after I found the items because at that point, the magic was over. And the same like with tournament races, like unless I'm like on Ganon or at Moldorm 2, like if my opponent finishes, I'm probably just gonna forfeit because at that point I know I've lost anyways. I don't really have interest in finishing the seed. So it wasn't until I actually started racing that I actually started finishing the seeds. And yeah, it was a long way to go because GT, like when you don't know what you're doing, that's a long dungeon. That's a long, difficult
sure
dungeon.
Is. Yeah, and not practicing Ganon and things like that. I remember doing lots of Ganon practice before I joined my first main tournament because it was so scary, especially Master Sword Ganon. So you jumped right into the 512.
I think they had a questionnaire where they asked what item do you want to find the most, and after that tournament, to this day, that item is always the boots. But for that tournament, because I was brand new, actually my item I think that I put on the questionnaire was silvers because I barely knew how to do silverless Ganon.
I think when you get to a level of experience that you're at, you kind of take for granted the Ganon fight, because while it's not that difficult, it does take quite a bit of practice to get to the stage where it's not that difficult. Which is, like when you see newer runners playing the game, it's kind of one of those things you kind of want to encourage them to practice the most because you can definitely lose race on a Ganon fight if you're not prepared for it.
Yeah.
So you do the 512. You don't. How well did you do? You said you didn't move on, but do you remember how well you performed? Were you just happy to be there, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think I had this like Swiss Gambit phenomenon because I was bad, right? So I lost my first 2 matches, but that means that everyone else I was facing also had lost their first 2 matches. So I got an easier pool, and also at that time I actually was putting time into like learning boss fights and some basic movement mechanics. So I think I went like 3 and 4 or something like that. I know I won at least 2 matches, so I didn't get blown out. But no, it wasn't a great performance.
But you probably weren't too upset, right? Or were your expectations like just kind of go in and have fun, or try to do your best?
I got absolutely stomped in my first race because He's Just a Boy was a pretty good runner, and I was brand new. Like he actually told me later that once I got good and like we actually rematched each other in league. And I made a comment. I was like, yeah, I wasn't that good when I faced you back then. He's like, yeah, to be honest, I wasn't that worried about racing against you. Because I was trashed here. Like that was my first time I'd ever done anything. I didn't know any of the strats. Yeah, he was like, I wasn't that worried about you. And looking back, I don't think he had anything to be worried about.
For sure. Did you end up doing some commentary for that tournament? Is that the infamous Smoke Solsky race? Was that in that tournament?
That was, and I commented that, or commented.
So, yeah, what was your perspective as that was going on? Like, obviously, if you're not familiar, Solsky was racing. What was his name? I love to smoke meth or something like that.
Meth 6'9".
I smoke meth. Yeah. Okay.
Classy name.
Yeah, and he ended up cheating, stream sniping Solsky because the hammer ended up being on Zora. Were you, as a commentator, aware of what was going on, or wasn't until afterwards and things kind of blew up that you were, privy to what was happening, or were you just, obviously you're not going to call out cheating while you're doing commentary, but was there any part of you that was suspicious, or were you still kind of green to the whole commentary scene and everything?
So I was new, and admittedly, whenever I was doing commentary, there were a couple of things that were going on. First off, I think that was like maybe my second commentary ever.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very focused on just not sounding dumb and making sure that I had everything correct. The other part was my co-com, I don't think did any races at that time.
Okay.
So there were some things that he was saying that I was trying to like politely correct. Things like you need a glove to get to the dark world. So I was like correcting like that level of information. So
Wow.
I was kind of focused on that
Yeah.
too. But
Yeah.
from there were some weird things that just as a commentator you're calling out. Like when Smoke had killed Aga, he picked up Kiki. And I was like, oh, this is awful because once he pays to go into pod, he's not going to have enough money for Zora. And
Mhm.
almost like 20 seconds after that, he mirrored and then went to Zora. So it's almost as if like he heard me, right?
Right.
Just the timing of that. Because why would you pick up the monkey and then mirror, like,
Right.
and then just go check Zora randomly? And then his interview, things didn't line up too, and I didn't want to call him out on it, but he had made some kind of comment about he didn't have the bow, so he didn't want to go into pod or something like that. But he went to Hylia Island to mirror and pick up the bow, and then was on his way to pod. So that
Right.
just you're remembering things differently than they happened on stream,
Right.
and it was really bizarre. I was still pretty new to the community, so I didn't want to be like, this is super. There were some things that didn't line up. I don't know that I
Sure.
was confident enough in myself and my analysis to be like, this guy's clearly cheating.
Sure. It's such an awkward situation because you don't want to call out cheating. It's like commentator 101. You don't call out someone's cheating on stream, even though it ended up, blatantly being cheating. But just imagine like your second or third commentary and you having to deal with this kind of craziness right away.
Yeah, it was kind of weird just because there were a lot of things. Like I know that Ack did a stream where he kind of analyzed the situation, and WQ or Real Alpha Gamer, whatever he's called now, he also did, like, he was doing some kind of cheating montage or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That video came up. So it's just kind of weird that like anyone who talks about it, like just seeing my name pop up, like, cause I'm a nobody, right? Like who am I? But just seeing my name just kind of just attached to that is kind of weird.
Totally. Yeah, for sure. And you're just fresh into the community too, as well. So it's like, it's just a crazy, crazy moment to be a part of, involuntarily. You're not racing, you're just doing commentary for speed gaming at the time.
Yeah, there was a lot of fallout from that. I think that was like the beginning of stream sniping too. Like that's when it, I think because of that race was when they enacted the delay for the first time.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you've been around for a long time. You've seen, you started in 2018. You've been a part of most of the main tournaments. When you joined after that first main tournament, where do you go there? Are you just trying to stay competitive? Because I think at the time there's also 2 main tournaments a year back then.
I missed the secondary tournaments.
Okay.
So I wasn't early enough for that because I think there was like a main tournament and then there was like a secondary tournament or something like that. I think once League came out, that kind of took the place of secondary tournaments.
Yeah.
And then also the Cross Keys tournament came out. So basically, like there's no shortage of competitive rando now. Whether it's some kind of air quotes like officially like.
Sure.
I don't think anyone would host a Cross Keys tournament because there's an established Cross Keys tourney, right?
Right.
As opposed to something, somebody just getting together and throwing together a co-op tourney that's like a one-off. It's something a little less structured. You might have multiple people doing that kind of endeavor, but
a little bit
I think
smaller
there are
scale.
enough. Yeah, I think there are enough cemented competitive events. Like if you want to race rando, you can race some rando, especially with the ladder. You can't.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, we were racing way pre-ladder though. So did you have a goal in mind with rando? Were you trying to I don't know, I'm trying to get a sense of where your mindset was when you're approaching the game. Was it just, let's have a good time, let's try to be a part of the community? Or did you have like an itch to start speed running? Cause you end up, running NMG and doing it really, really well as well.
I don't know. I kind of think that anything worth doing is worth doing well. So if this is something, I mean, geez, how many races have I done? How many hours have I put into it? Like at this point, if I'm not at least somewhat decent at the game, I probably need to rethink like what I'm doing with my time,
Right.
So,
Sure. But
I don't
I'm
know.
thinking
Like
more to when you started, when you're, you're just joining in 2018. Do you know a lot of people, or because you said this, the 512 was your first tournament, so you don't really know people in the community yet, right? Like
not at all.
Yeah. So you're just kind of, again, green. Are you trying to do pickup races? Did you have a goal in mind of like what I want to do with this? Or was it just like, this is cool, so let's see where it goes?
I wanted to be competitive. When you're talking about people who are good at the game, I wanted to be on that list. I don't know that I ever like really cared to be best in the community just because it is randomizer.
Right.
So there's always that luck factor. So much to my frustration these days, now that I am one of the better players, that luck kind of works against me. I feel because I
Right.
put time into the game. I want execution to matter. But
Yep.
your opponent rushes a pendant dungeon and finds the keys to the kingdom and absolutely dunks on you. It's like, hey, NMG ain't gonna help me there.
Right.
So I wanted to be competitive, and when I first got into the community, he's just a boy went somewhat out of his way to kind of invite me to the dailies. Like, hey, if you really enjoy this, you should do this. Because at the time, like the dailies, like that was what we did. The ALTTP Fando that Ultima was hosting. So I got involved, and there were a bunch of people there. That's actually where I met GFE, who's one of my friends, and over time, I just kind of met other people within the community. You just start seeing names, some of which are still around, some of which have gone. Like there are a lot of names I haven't seen in a long time, like Ink Nun. That was a name that was around with the dailies. I haven't seen around in forever. Always getting super good times. Gloin, always getting super good
Right.
times. Just a bunch of people, and Stokey Town, actually. I wasn't aware of, like
Right.
the type of runner he turned out to be, but allegedly. But yeah, like I would see these people getting these times that, like in my mind, with my level of skill, I couldn't fathom. And I could never fathom getting a time that good, because how can you play the game that good? How do you know where the items are? Like you're supposed to know where the items are, but
Right.
how do you know where to go for progression? And solving that puzzle was so interesting to me, and how you evaluate the decisions to go here versus there, and reading the meta. Like my first race of Radical Sniper, early in the seed, I sequence broke up to the mountain. I didn't have a lamp or flute, and I found flippers in Hera, and then that led to Moon Pearl and Waterfall Cave, and I just kind of forgot about that, right? And Meyer was a crystal, so we needed flute. And all of a sudden, like an hour later in the seed, I'm in Swamp, and I find the lamp. And I was like, wait a minute, lamp. I was like, that means flute was to get to the mountain. I was like, wait a minute, flippers are on the mountain. Moon Pearl was behind the flippers. Flute can't be in the dark world. And just when those moments happen and you track the logic like that, to me, that's like rando at its best. Like when there's a puzzle to solve and you track that and you're reading the logic, and that, like, I think that's such a cool thing to do, which is one of the reasons why, like, I'm kind of against things like progressive bows, right? Because it obscures that logical follow through of your items. Right. When you find a bow, you don't know if this is the bow that you were supposed to find first. So I don't know. I just that whole sequence of figuring stuff out and weighing your decisions, what makes the most sense to check. That's just such a cool thing to me. Like that's my favorite part about rando, if I'm being honest.
Sure. Was there something that was like scratching the competitive itch before you had rando? Any sort of other game that you were playing, like maybe competitively online, or was there anything that was, because like the competition that you get from rando, you don't find everywhere.
Yeah, actually, no. This was my first introduction to anything that was competitive. I mean, I'm using air quotes, competitive things I was a music major in college, so we did lots of auditions and things like that for different
Mm.
ensembles. So I'm used to like preparing for a competition of sorts. Where you're there, there's some kind of performance check, and you need to be prepared for it. But really, like in terms of competitive gaming, like no. I've always enjoyed playing game, win or lose. I just love playing the game. Although I will say that one thing I do miss about randomizer is the fact that you can't really share the experience until it's over.
Oh,
because you can't talk to people. There's the whole metagame aspect, and if you're going to make it a voice call, you have to establish that it's a voice call.
Yeah.
And not everybody's friends with everybody. So whereas like me and GFE are really close and we enjoy being in a voice call, you add a third party to that, then all of a sudden the dynamic gets weird because maybe we don't know this third person that well. So it's just, I really do enjoy the game. I enjoy being competitive. I also like, seeing how other people handle the competitive aspect. But in Rando, you don't really get that until after the fact. So that's like one thing that kind of makes me sad about Rando, competitive Rando. But
except for
this
co-op,
was my,
right? Co-op scratches that
co-op.
itch. Yeah.
And I really, GFE is usually my co-op partner. And I really, really enjoy running with him just because we always have a good time.
Sure.
We have our memes that we give each other hard times about. He's taken some bad deaths. I've taken some bad deaths. I'll find blue mail and forget to tell him, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
and it's almost like you guys are opposites in a way in like the things that you like about Rando. Like I'm going to have to get GFE here on here at some point and do a deep dive conversation with him because he is somewhat of a memer when it comes to routing. Whereas I would never call you a memer, like, you know what I mean? And so it's like this sort of yin and yang that kind of is pretty spicy when you put it together.
Yeah, I feel like that's to our advantage though, right? Because when we're doing co-op, like we bring two different perspectives. Because if you both have the same perspectives, then basically you just have two people doing the exact same thing, and you don't really you're not as diversified in terms of what you perceive your options are when you're trying to route a seed. So having GFE who likes the low percent plays and he's always looking for an excuse to go into Ice Palace looking for a hammer, maybe even before his Moon Pearl, like that kind of stuff. And I tend to be a little bit more like item dense checks. So
right.
No, I think we pair really well as a co-op for that reason.
It's true. I think you guys make an awesome team. And in fact, if I'm thinking about this right, your team has to be the only team that's played all 4 seasons with the same 3 players. I can't think of any other team that's done that.
I want to say I can't think of. I want to say there was one more, maybe like Les French Canadians or something like that.
No, they've swapped players out in that team. So I don't think they have. We
might be the only OG team.
Yeah, there's 6 because there was only 16 teams. You were one of the teams that joined in the first season with you, GFE, and Sabo. And you talk about how much fun it is to play as a team. And I'm obviously super biased since I created the league, but I totally agree that co-op is such a fun way to play, especially compared to all the other different ways that we normally play, which is, one-on-one or in big group races against each other. But you guys had some really bad luck in the league. I think you and GFE and Sabo are all excellent runners who've all done well in main tournaments and all the other tournaments. It's like for some reason in the league, you guys have just not been able to put it together where it's almost like a meme unto itself. You guys haven't made the playoffs, right?
We have not.
Wow. How is that possible? I don't
know.
get
Y'all tell me.
One team that's been together all 4 seasons and still hasn't made the playoffs. It doesn't compute. You tell me that. And it's like, of course, P-Train and GFE and Sabo have been to the playoffs at least once, but no, that's one of those weird phenomenons, really.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I will say that I try not to take League too seriously, just because I remember like
Hmm.
when it was originally started, it's just like, hey, we just want to race with friends, and
Yep.
that's how I always take it. I think Sabo's an excellent guy. I think GFE's an excellent guy. I
Yeah.
don't interact as much with Sabo as I do with GFE, unfortunately, but ironically though, he's actually the only randomizer community member that I've met in person.
Oh, wow.
My wife has a friend in Canada, and we visited, and I sent Sabo a Discord message. I said, "Hey, we're going to be in this area. Are you going to be anywhere? Are you anywhere near this area?" And he was like, "Actually, yeah." So we sat down and got a coffee, and I remember being super nervous because I've never met anyone in the
Hmm.
community face to face, and I had no clue what we talked about. I just know that I talked so much, and I was just so nervous. But he's
That's
such
so
a cool
funny.
guy.
I know. Sabo's so chill. Like, for it to be nervous with anyone, it's like, how could you be nervous with Sabo? But I get it. Like, you're actually, we spend a lot of time with these people, but most of we never get to see them in real life. You maybe get to see them on camera or whatever, but it's not quite the same thing. And that's kind of my goal of the podcast, is even though we're not, sitting down in the same room together, just chatting with people is a lot of fun. That's kind of outside of rando.
Yeah. So there's so many different people with so many different perspectives and life
Yeah.
experiences, and it's just really
Mhm.
neat to get to know everybody.
Yeah, and it's what's cool about the game is how different it is for every runner, right? Like, so we, in our kind of circle of friends, we've got the memers of like GFE and Julo, and then we've got the Lucksackers like Gamachu, and then we got the unlucky ones like me and Moogle.
In a category of his own.
Yeah, totally. But we all have like different, experiences with the game, but we're all still playing the same game. Something that I find super interesting about you is you are like one of the genuinely nice people in the community who goes out of his way to like help people and help new runners. Like, I mean, even people that aren't new, you were one of the people that taught me how to do spooky action, and you're kind of always available to help people because you have this like world of knowledge. Does that come just from you being a genuine nice guy, or did you kind of like set out to like, hey, I like to help people get better at this game?
Well, first off, I'm slightly embarrassed. Thank you very much for the kind words. I'm over here blushing, man. I really, I try to be. I mean, I think it's kind of hard to call yourself a nice person. I think that's kind of for other people to decide.
Sure.
So I really do appreciate that. But no, I mean, I'm an educator at heart. My major in college is music education, and one of my favorite things in life is just the sharing of knowledge. I love learning. I love teaching. Which sometimes doesn't come off so well, because like if I learn something new and I think it's like the coolest thing, like I want to tell everyone about it. I'm like, hey, did you know that? Like I thought this was cool. Do you think it's cool? And
yeah,
like, dude, I've known that for like 10 years. Like, you're late to the party. Like, why are you telling me this random thing? So
yeah.
But no, and also I remember what it was like to be a new person and to find, which, again, like there's so many resources today. Like we got the Rando Wiki, we got the FMG tutorial, which has, all of this knowledge like already unpacked in an easily to access version. And I remember what it was like to be a new guy trying to find that information. You don't really feel like pinging anyone because you don't want to be a nuisance, but you're really eager to learn something and you just don't know where to find it. So I don't know. I really like helping those people out to the extent I'm able. Like I'm not going to do it for you, but I certainly will try to. As long as they're like talking in good faith and they're asking questions in good faith.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I believe, if it's an opinion that you truly believe in, I think that's worth treating with respect. And I try to do that in all my interactions. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
Sure. You were a part of the second term of the council and were a leader on the council for a while. So let's talk a little bit about your time on the council. You very surprisingly were not part of that first term. I think a lot of people just assumed that you were, but you weren't. And you kind of missed out on the chaos. And when you came, you were like the lead of bringing in like the bylaws. So tell me about your experience joining the council. I think it was on the second term, and then kind of leading that charge with the bylaws and kind of setting the stage for what the council has become in our community.
Again, thank you for the kind words. But yeah, I never had experience writing bylaws of any kind. And I just full credit where credit is due. Cassidy Moen actually did like the initial draft of the bylaws. They weren't complete,
that's right.
I did enough to where I feel comfortable with saying like, yes, I did a lot with the bylaws, but I would feel like I've slighted Cassidy if I didn't mention that they actually did a very good start to the bylaws, and I took what they had created and just kind of expanded on that and ran with it, and that ended up becoming the bylaws that the council uses today. So that was kind of the start of it, and really just my personality at work, personally in the rando community, and all things I do, is there are just some things that need to be done. And someone's got to do it. And I'm the kind of person that if no one's going to do it, I'll just go ahead and do it because it needs to be done. And there's no sense pretending like it's just going to do itself. Right. So I knew bylaws needed to be done. I didn't see anybody else like really stepping up to do it. I didn't mind doing it. So I just kind of stepped up and I was like, hey, I took what Cassidy had in the Google Drive and just started working on it. And I was like, hey guys, what do you think about this? And, then I got elected leader, and I was able to actually kind of drive that, right? Because before I was just a member, and again, who am I? There's 17 of us. What makes me any more important than any of the other ones? But being a leader, I was able to kind of direct because we had this. I was actually kind of sad that we the leaders, we were talking, and we had this plan. And then something happened in the Racing Council channel that like distracted from all of it. Like we had this post that I was going to post the next day in the council channel. It was I think you were in the council. It was where I basically plotted out like for the next like 2 months we were going to ratify this bylaw, then we were going to vote on Icebreaker and Diver Down. Then we're going to ratify this bylaw. Like that whole plan, I had that ready to go. And then something happened in the Racing Council channel that just kind of distracted from all of that. And now, like, instead of looking proactive, it looked like we were trying to appease the community by saying, hey, look what we're trying to do. Like, we're working on it. And I got so mad at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, being the council leader kind of made a lot of that stuff easier because, I consulted with at the time Dante and Scary Olive and just kind of had an idea for how it should work. If I was the dictator and I could do whatever I wanted, this is probably how I would handle it. Do you guys have any feedback? And they were like, no, just run with it. So that's what we did.
What do you think of your time as a member of the council?
I would like to think it was positive. I hope that, people enjoyed me as a leader. I hope that I helped out, at least some. But again, I feel weird saying, "Oh yeah, I was a great council leader." I feel like that's for other people to decide.
But what did you think? Not what did other people think. What did you feel about your time and what and even your thoughts on what the council is and was?
So I did enjoy. I enjoyed being on the council. I actually applied for the last term and didn't get selected. Well, I didn't expect I would though. There's a lot of people on the council, and if I were on the council and we're pushing 19 members and with a maximum of 20, I would probably emphasize new people over veterans returning. So no harm there. Completely understand, but no, I did enjoy it. I enjoyed working on the bylaws, and honestly, this is I really enjoy rando, and I've been doing it for so long. And again, anything worth doing is worth doing right. So I felt like it kind of made sense with as much time as I was putting into the game to try to take a part in making the community the best it can be.
Yeah.
I ended up stepping down 2 terms ago for a couple of reasons. Number one, my work was changing. So I had a bunch of major projects coming up, and I just did not have the bandwidth that I had previously. And I just kind of wanted, I stepped, even outside of rando, I stepped away from a lot of stuff just to kind of make sure I wasn't getting burnt out with, too many plates spinning.
Sure.
that was part of it. Secondly, as I mentioned earlier, like especially if I'm not super familiar with someone, when they bring something to my attention or when they're talking to me, my knee-jerk reaction is to assume that they are talking in good faith and that what they're saying they mean sincerely, and that I should respond to it seriously, and I should give it attention, and I should try to respond diplomatically, professionally, however you want to word it. And I don't know. Toward the end of my council, it felt like there was a lot less of those serious discussions happening. But because I was a council member and a council leader, I felt like I had to treat those responses with respect. And I was getting really burnt out on trying to treat bad faith arguments with good faith responses.
I see.
And I don't know. I probably shouldn't have spent so much time on that as I did. But yeah, that got old really quick. To the point where some of those members ended up getting temporary bans and ended up leaving the community.
Sure. Yeah, it's tough when you're trying to appease people, especially when they're not arguing in good faith, really. Like, I don't know. Yeah, we don't have to obviously name names or anything, but if you'd been a part of those community discussions, you'll know who those people are. So when did you transition to NMG? When did you make the jump to NMG? Because it's not something that you do all the time, but it is something that you mix in with rando as well. And it's kind of like NMG is one of those things where there's people in the rando community that love to do it. There's people that came from NMG that play rando, and then there's people that want nothing to do with NMG and just kind of enjoy the rando aspect. You're kind of the one that does it all. So when did you decide let's jump into speedrunning?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd say I do it all. There are a lot of community members out there that do a lot more, that know a lot more about Link to the Past than I. They've probably forgotten more than I'll ever know, to be honest. Like I do NMG, but
yeah, I understand you're a humble dude, but you do a lot. Don't discredit yourself.
No, again, anything worth doing is doing right. So I wanted to be competitive, and to be honest, like the reason why I got into NMG, it has a lot to do with my music background, right? So you're studying these sonatas, these concertos, and you're practicing for them. And one thing, I played saxophone, so one thing my saxophone professor beat into me was the importance of scales. Just practicing scales.
Yeah.
So you do these scales, and it's like you'd be preparing this concerto, didn't want to hear that, I want to hear scales. And the reason for that was because, scales there, you play them uniform, you set the metronome, you up the entire range of the instrument, you need perfect tone, you need perfect rhythm, all this other stuff. And his point was that playing scales, that's the ruler that you use to measure all of your other performance by. That if you can't play a C major scale with a good tone and a C major, if you can't play a C major scale with a good tone and play it rhythmically accurate, then how in the world can you expect to play this concerto now that there are different rhythms? Now that you're actually trying to read music rather than play it from memory, there are accidentals, there's different key signatures, there are time changes. If you can't play the scale right, how can you do anything else? So I see NMG like being primarily a rando player. I see NMG as that ruler. That if you want an objective look into how well you play the game, NMG is how you get that. Because with randomizer, like let's take Meyer 2, for instance, in Misery Meyer. You look at your play versus your opponent's play, and it's like, oh, my opponent got through faster. Why was that? Oh, well, he got there with sword beams. I had fighter sword. That doesn't count. Or, oh, he had fire rod. I used a bow. That doesn't count. The good is kind of arbitrary and rando because the order in which you find items, you may not have the same kit that someone else had when they got to that room. But NMG, everything is equal. You have the with the exception of like some RNG aspects, you have the same chance to execute a room that everybody else does. So it really is just very eye-opening, like where your strengths are and where your gaps are, and what you need to work on to shore up your differences. And I will admit it's a black hole. Like it's if you
Yeah.
really have to have like
Yeah.
the mind of a surgeon. Like if you think
Yeah.
about like the fortitude it takes to actually want to cut a dude open. Like when you're looking at your play, like you don't get a chance to celebrate, because the moment you achieve something, your next step is to look at what else you suck at and try to figure out how to
Right.
suck less.
Right.
And then you fix
Yeah.
that. All right, well, what's the next thing I'm bad at? And so you constantly have to look at that, and you're constantly faced with that. And even if you're not paying attention to how you're playing, your splits are very clear on how you're doing. So, so yeah, that's kind of a very long-winded answer as to why I run NMG and how I got into it.
Do you have a goal for it? Are you trying to get to like 125, 124?
That honestly, that's like something I'm kind of struggling with right now. So, I mean, I'm at 127, so like getting a 126 sounds kind of nice. But at the same time, I honestly, like, my life has changed drastically over the past couple months, so I don't have as much time to spend grinding that stuff. And also my hands don't hold up as well as they used to. So if I try like long sessions of like grinding on the practice hack, my hands start to feel it. So I'm less like, if I only have so much time to hold a controller and play a game, I kind of have to be wise with what I do with that time. Do I want to race? Do I want to do a run? Or do I want to grind out, stuff on the practice hack?
Right.
So that's a consideration. But also just in terms of a goal, it's like, I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know that I want to push for a world record, and I'm not trying to be naive and say like, oh yeah, world record's easy. Like I like, as I say
Right.
that, it's like, do I want to dedicate a part-time job's worth of time into trying to get a world record caliber skill level? And I just don't know that I want to do that. And if I don't want to do that, then how far do I want to push it? And if you don't have an answer to that question, it makes it very difficult to focus the hours it takes to get better. And you have all these people. I know Vortex has been grinding. I know Relkin's been grinding. Shady Force has been grinding. There's a lot of other people who I'm probably forgetting. There's a lot of people right now putting time into that NMG run. And I just honestly, I don't know that I have the skill or the will right now to hang with them at this point.
Yeah. Where do you see the future of rando going? Do you feel like we're growing as a community? Do you think that we're going to become stagnant? And even the modes, it feels like, you and I have been racing since 2018, where you had like standard open, key sanity and cross keys and stuff. Now we have access to every sort of mode possible with, and it's just going to get more and more intense. Do you see that as a positive for the community, or what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, I'll kind of share like my personal experience, right? As someone who started out really badly, I've gotten good. Like I think competitive rando, like, although there always will be casual players, I think rando just kind of grows out of the competitive scene.
Yeah.
Because that, I do feel like that is a significant majority of the number of seeds that are being run. Sure, there are people that play casually, not in a race scenario, but I think they are far the minority. Competitive rando is just kind of interesting. Like, especially this tournament, we have a lot of new names, which can be kind of frustrating as someone who's put time to get good at the game. And I don't mean to slight anybody when I say this, but there are some people who I actually think are respectable run. I mean, you don't get to top 64 in the tournament accidentally. Even if all you have is luck, that you got something working for you, right?
Yeah.
So you have these people who see themselves as underdogs, even though it's randomizer and anybody can win. But because of that, they're like, oh, well, if I'm going to lose anyways, they kind of take that as like their opportunity to do whatever they want to do, right? It's like, oh, well, I'm going to make these crazy plays because I'm going to lose anyways, right? And then being the favorite, so to speak, when you're running against someone and you get dunked on, because it's like, oh yeah, I knew I was going to lose, so I just rushed Pendant Pod and I found the boots, the hook shot, and the mirror. and that just opened up the seed for them. It can be kind of frustrating to run against that. So competitively, I don't know. Like as we continue to grow and as people get better at rando, like sometimes it feels like the better you get, the worse you get.
Mm-hmm.
Or like the better you get, the worst results you get, just because
Right.
once people recognize your name,
Yeah.
if they feel like they're going to lose to you, they just kind of do whatever they want to. And not everyone's like that, but they just kind of do. Some people will do whatever they want to with the route, and it's hard to play against that. And those are some of my most frustrating losses, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, it feels like when you lose to people that you quote unquote shouldn't lose, it happens a lot more. Obviously, as you get good in the game, when you start out, you're one of those people, and then you play a long time and new people come in and you're like, who is this person? You lose to them and then you lose to someone else you never heard of. And those are the races, or those are the losses that feel the worst.
Yeah, I mean, which this was not one of those cases. I just want to establish that. But my first race in SG Live was against Amaranth, and pretty much everybody, Amaranth included. So I'm not trying to be rude and be like, oh yeah, Amaranth's not that good of a run. Amaranth herself considered herself the underdog. So like there were a lot of people who just thought I was going to win that race. And Amaranth, while in the mire area, just decided to dive desert and found the hook shot, which ended up being my go mode item that I found much later. And Amaranth blew me out of the water. And it's just one of those situations where, the most random check can just completely change a seed. And that wasn't even like a crazy. That wasn't even a crazy play, because I remember I was actually talking with Gamma, and he's like, "You were right there. Why not just dive desert? Like, it kind of makes sense." And in my mind, I just didn't think I had to. I was, I'll come back to it eventually. And
yeah,
I thought I'd come back to it much sooner than I did. But
sure,
I don't know. Like, as you're talking about getting better, sometimes it can be frustrating to pour time into execution, but then lose to your decision making like that.
Yeah. Well, that's going to lead us to my last question then, and it's something that I've asked everyone on the show. It's about tilt. How do you manage tilt? Because you play on cam for most of your races. You've got a camera set up, and I've seen you get frustrated, but your frustrated, P-Train, is so much more mild than a lot of people's frustrated, at least how I've seen it, and compared to myself as well. I don't think you've taken an extended break from racing because of tilt or anything. But so how do you manage your tilt, and how do you keep it in check? And what are the things that you do to make sure that that you're still enjoying the game? Because we've talked a lot about competitive rando, but at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, then like, what's the point, right?
True. I think first, I'm just I just have a general positive disposition, which I think helps out a lot.
Yeah.
Sometimes naively so, where I I just don't realize anything's wrong, and I'm just a positive guy, and I'm just like, oh yeah, everything's great. And then people will talk to me later about whatever situation I'm in, like, oh my god, was that awkward? I was like, I don't know, was it? Like I'm just oblivious, right? So that's just my personality. But
sure.
But no, I really do enjoy the game, so that's a big part of it. Like, I just enjoy Link to the Past, and especially if I have boots. It's hard for me to have a bad time when I'm able to dash. Like the tournament race I raced earlier against Radical Sniper, that was a key sanity seed. I'm not finding progression. I don't have the boots. Been walking around for like an hour and a half. It sucks. It becomes kind of a drag, but I don't know. You can't take the game too seriously. It's randomizer. It's, even if you have pocket kings, you still have the chance to lose to someone with pocket aces.
Yep.
Anything that works 95% of the time is still going to fail 5% of the time. So I think you just have to be realistic that not every race is going to be your race.
Yeah.
If you win like 15 out of 5 races, or 15 out of 20 races, that means that you're losing 5 of those races, which means you could lose out of 40 races, you could lose 10 in a row. Out of 60 races, you could lose 15 in a row, right? Like that's just how it works. So, I think you have to be realistic. I think you have to do stuff you enjoy, I don't think you should push yourself. I don't try to make it happen. especially in a randomizer, you have to, as long as you're playing well and you're making the best decisions you feel like you can make with the information available to you in a given seed, then there's nothing to be mad about. You played your best game. Someone else found items differently. They had different information available to them that caused them to do different things. Like I mentioned, Radical Sniper, he went in the wrong portal on Death Mountain and couldn't dive Turtle Rock. It's that stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
One day that'll happen to you and it will pay off for you. One day that'll happen to you and you'll get burned by it. That's just the nature of rando.
Yeah, it is the nature, but it's, I tell myself all the time, this game, win or loss, it doesn't matter. Win or loss, it doesn't matter. Win or loss, it doesn't matter. And at some point I stopped believing myself. You know what I mean? It's like I tell myself that just have fun. It doesn't really matter. And it's just hard not to let it get to you sometimes, especially when it comes in waves.
I think the highlight of my rando career was last year's. I think it was last year's tournament. I don't think it was 2 years ago. I think it was last year. My race against Yagamoth in game 3 of our series. Yagamoth had a lead on me, and I came back from behind in the GT climb. I think I finally passed him in the Aga 2 fight. He had a head start on me, and just little by little, I just edged out just on execution. I just gained time. I hovered Moldorm 2 and finally passed him in that Aga 2 fight. And he ended up taking a death to Ganon with a fairy, but he took a death to Ganon that caused him to have a 1 and 2. And at that point, I had the race.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember how that felt. And it felt so amazing. Like, I felt like I was a boss. Like, I always, again, like when you talk about people who are good at rando, I wanted to be on that list. And I felt like everyone who saw that race, like, I was now on that list, like, to just overcome someone with execution in a way that was like that clear. It just felt really good. So compare that to last year's, I guess Yagamoth may have been 2 years ago, because last year I raced against 1UP, and we were almost room for room in GT. And when I was fighting Ganon in the second phase, I accidentally got hit by a fire bat, which freaked me out. So I stopped, I drank a potion, and I had a 1 and 2, and that was all 1UP needed to pass me. So I think he fanfare sniped me, and which is really bitter. And then also in the casual boots invitational on the ladder, Hitsu sniped me. Hitsu fanfare sniped me by like 2 seconds. And that was my elimination from that tournament.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, like those losses can hurt, but also I remember what it felt like to be on the other side of that snipe and how awesome it felt. So like I think I try to keep in mind that, yes, while getting sniped really sucks, I also know what it feels like to be on the other side of that, and how awesome it feels. And I never want to be the guy that makes someone feel guilty for winning.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want to, because I know they have to be on cloud 9 with a victory like that. And I never want to do anything that would take away from that. So that kind of helps frame everything too, because while I'm not there this time, there'll come a time where I'm on the other side of that snipe, and I'm going to feel good. And I would hope my opponent feels happy for me. So that's what it is.
Totally. Because you're a good person, P-Train. That's what it is. You're able to manage it well. I think we covered it all, man. Is there anything else that we missed? I think we got it.
No, I'm happy if you're happy, man. I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Cool, man. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your good vibes. We need more good vibes in the community too. So
I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
I really enjoy talking with P-Train. P-Train's one of my friends, like one of my close friends in the community, and fun to play games with, fun to play specifically Link to the Past Randomizer with. Really good, really knowledgeable. So much positivity coming from him, and just someone that can help keep you even, which is what someone like me needs. I think that's why we get along. Still shocked that Sphere Affinity hasn't made the playoffs in the 4 seasons that they've been in the league. We'll see if they can break that curse going into season 5 when they announce that. I expect big things from Sphere Affinity. I kind of always do. and they always let me down. So P-Train, GFE, Sabo, don't let me down this time. Get that playoff push that I'm hoping to see from you guys. Again, thank you all for just the general reception I've gotten from the show. You're probably going to get sick of me talking about how good it is for me to hear all the positivity, but I'm eating it up. If you can leave a review on whatever app you listen to, that'd be helpful. You can share the show with your friends, help build our listener base up. Join the Discord, of course. You can find the link to the Discord on our website, 216pod.com. You can follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/fearagent_. Streaming there more, doing some more races, having a lot of fun with the game. Podcast is helping that a lot. Going to have a bonus episode this Thursday. This week we'll have Nielsen Alex as episode number 5, dropping just a little bit early. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcast or Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, 216pod.com. Join the Discord. Thank you all for hanging out so much. We'll see you next week.